Is Monday, November 14th, about a half hour away from kickoff between Commanders and Eagles on Monday Night Football to close out Week 10. An eventful Week 10 thus far, as every week has been the NFL season. This is the Pump Fake, Jared Bailey with you as always. A few things to dive into on the Monday edition of the show before the bigger, more broader version of breaking down everything on Wednesday before we get into Week 11. But a few things I definitely want to touch on. The Raiders, the Bills, Jeff Saturday, and the Colts. Those are what I'll be discussing today. And then, like I said, we'll get into a more broader version of everything on Wednesday, all the power rankings and such like that. So, but there are a few things that I definitely wanted to touch on today as we get close to Philly. So, yesterday, this is a new low for the Las Vegas Raiders as a franchise. I mean, these are lows that are remnant of that through the Jamarcus Russell years. Basically from the 2000s to like mid-2010s when they were just miserably bad. I mean, this is right up there. They're probably more disappointing than a lot of those years because they had a lot of expectations coming into this season. Last year, playoff team, a play away from advancing in the playoffs. I mean, the wildcard game in Cincinnati last year came down to the final play. And then this offseason, they go out, they get a Chandler Jones, they trade for Devontae Adams, and everybody's, expecting, oh my goodness, like this team is, if they're a playoff team last year, you had the best receiver in football. I mean, sky's the limit. Hired Josh McDaniels, and I would argue that's where the wheels fell off. Because we've seen what Josh McDaniels is as a head coach. We saw it in Denver. This is the second time that he's parlayed being Tom Brady's offensive coordinator into a head coaching gig, and he stunk in both places that he's ended up. It was bad in Denver. Last couple years in New England, he wasn't very good. I mean, the Cam Newton season wasn't that great. He went 7-9 that year. Even last year with Mac Jones, I mean, the offense wasn't anything prolific. They're a playoff team, but I mean, if you look back at how they got there, the offense wasn't dynamic by any means. Mac Jones wasn't dynamic. I know he's a Pro Bowler, but let's take that with a grain of salt. So Josh McDaniels gets the head coaching job. Everybody's excited about what the season has in store. Obviously, the AFC West went through an arms race in the offseason, just every team adding all the pieces that they could find. And now we are just over 24 hours removed from the Las Vegas Raiders just being defeated by an Indianapolis Colts team led by Jeff Saturday, a man who obviously was the center for that team for a very long time, was a very good player, but had never had any sort of coaching experience at the college or pro level. They march in amidst all that controversy that they went through throughout last week, and they defeat Las Vegas in Las Vegas. Now the Raiders are 2-7 and all but done this season. And look, man, Derek Carr cut an emotional press conference after the fact yesterday. Very emotional. I mean, he's crying. He is really choked up, saying that so much that a lot of guys are going through just to sleep, just to practice, and the fact that they are where they are in this season upsets him. It pisses him off. Pisses a lot of people in the locker room off. And all I could think of is that Derek Carr deserves so much better than the Raiders organization. So much better. You look at what he's been through since he's been there. I mean, all the coaching changes, all the injuries that he's gone through personally. Last year with the John Gruden stuff, the Henry Ruggs stuff, Rich Bisaccia named the interim head coach. Nobody expected them to make the playoffs, and they did. They went through all that adversity and overcame it. It was a great story. Derek Carr was in the MVP conversation for a lot of last year. He threw for 1 billion yards. And the Raiders were one of the feel-good stories of last season. At least on the field. I mean, they went through so much last season. There was a big black cloud, multiple black clouds following them around all season long. That team had no business being a playoff team. And they overcame it all, got into the playoffs in the last week of the season by beating the Chargers, were a play away from beating the Cincinnati Bengals and advancing in the playoffs. And there's a lot of expectations this season. And when you see a quarterback like that who is, for all accounts, loved by his teammates, respected by his teammates, respected around the league, go through that. And by the way, Derek Carr, good quarterback. Derek Carr, good quarterback. Played well this season. He's being handicapped by everything going on with Josh McDaniels, with that coaching staff, with play calling. And now they're 2-7. And you got your quarterback emotional. And all I can think of is that Derek Carr just deserves better. And I know you might be thinking, okay, Mark Davis has got to do something now about Josh McDaniels. And they're 2-7. They just lost to a team with a head coach that's never coached or been an assistant coach at the college or pro level. There's no way that they're not gonna, make some changes with that happening. No way. Well, to address that, here's what Mark Davis, the owner, this is from Paul Gutierrez of ESPN, had to say today, and I quote, "People in today's world want instant gratification. The guys coached nine games," referring to Josh McDaniels. "We're 2-7, not the results we're looking for, but at the same time, we've lost 6 games where we've had the ball with a chance to win at the end." Seems like a little bit of shade being thrown at Derek Carr from his owner. So when you combine that with the press conference that Derek Carr cut following yesterday's loss to the Colts, combined with Mark Davis. By the way, Mark Davis, we can all agree that Josh McDaniels should probably be gone after this season. Maybe right now. Mark Davis isn't firing Josh McDaniels after this season. You know why? Because he's already paying a boatload of money to John Gruden to not be there. He isn't going to do the same thing to Josh McDaniels. This is basically Mark Davis saying, look, I'm already paying John Gruden. I'm not firing Josh McDaniels yet and having to pay 3 different guys at the same time. And look, we can be irritated at that. We can say that that's BS. It's money. It's business. I would be very shocked if Josh McDaniels is the Raiders could lose out, go 2-15, and Josh McDaniels could still be back next year. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Mark Davis doesn't want to cut out that kind of money. Remember, John Gruden had a 10-year, $100 million deal. He's still going to be getting paid for it. Mark Davis isn't going to fire Josh McDaniels, who has, I'm not sure the number of guaranteed money in his contract, but there's obviously some there. He isn't going to fire Josh McDaniels right now, hire another coach this offseason, and be paying 3 guys. And if you're Derek Carr and you see those comments, there's no reason that he would want to stay there, that he should want to stay there. This is a talented guy that would be an upgrade over a good amount of teams' quarterback situations right now. Ask Atlanta if they'd like to have a Derek Carr. I'm sure that they would. Ask Carolina if they would like to have a Derek Carr. I'm sure that they would. Ask Pittsburgh if they would like to have a Derek Carr. I'm sure that they would. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Derek Carr. And teams like New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans has a fantastic defense when they're healthy. Was a darling coming into the season by a lot of media members. Peter King said that he liked them to make the Super Bowl with Jameis Winston as their starter going into the year. You don't think New Orleans wouldn't mind having Derek Carr over Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton? You don't think that Detroit would prefer to have Derek Carr over Jared Goff this season? Derek Carr deserves better than the Las Vegas Raiders, and especially with the Raiders. Hiring Josh McDaniels is such a Raiders hire, too. And he'll be there at least one more year. This isn't going to be a one and done. I would be very shocked if it's a one and done situation. It should be. I would be shocked if it is. Derek Carr deserves better. I'd be very shocked if he's back with the Raiders next season. And I'm sure a few of those aforementioned teams will be in the mix for him in terms of executing a trade. But Derek Carr deserves better than a team that's 2-7 with a bad head coach and an owner who doesn't seem to care. So shifting gears to the other side of that game from yesterday, the Indianapolis Colts. Look, we know what happened. I mean, it was all Jeff Saturday gets hired. I just touched on it a little bit. Never coaching at the college or pro level. And then he wins his first game, and he announced it was expected that Sam Ehlinger was going to be his quarterback, and then he says, no, Matt Ryan. He's starting today. And Matt Ryan goes out and plays well, has the second longest run of any quarterback this past week of 39 yards, second only to Justin Fields. There was a touchdown pass to Paris Campbell in the fourth quarter to give the Colts the lead. And they hold on. And the Colts are 1-0 under Jeff Saturday. And by the way, if you haven't seen the video of the locker room and the speech that Jeff Saturday gave, I highly suggest you go watch it. You can find it on Twitter, YouTube, however you want to find it. Go watch it. It is it's a nice scene. And I don't want this to sound like I'm piling on Jeff Saturday, because I tweeted out, like, look, we're crapping a little bit too much on Jeff Saturday. Because if any of us were called by Jim Irsay and say, hey, I want you to be the coach of the Colts for the rest of the year, all of us would have been on the first plane to Indianapolis to accept the job. So I don't blame Jeff Saturday for that. I know that there was something like Joe Thomas, Bill Cowher, two guys who I like and respect, were angry about it. And angry, it seemed, at Jeff Saturday. I'm not one of those people, because I get it. You know, if you're presented with an opportunity, you're going to take it. And anybody who says, no, I wouldn't take it, you're lying. You're lying to me. You're lying to everybody that you're saying that to. You're lying to yourself. Anybody who would have been presented the opportunity to be the head coach, interim albeit, interim head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, would have said yes. Jeff Saturday is no different. He said yes, took the job, and just took all of the scrutiny on the chin. Now, Jim Irsay had a lot to say about it on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw his tweet. I'll have to pull it up. But this is all to basically say good for Jeff Saturday. I will say this, and that's why I wanted to preempt this with, this isn't to crap on Jeff Saturday, but I do want to say this. It does concern me. If Jeff Saturday has success throughout the rest of the season and is named the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, which again, Jeff has said that, or maybe it wasn't Jeff, I think Joe Thomas had said that he personally didn't want to get into coaching because he wanted to spend time with his kids. And I think that Jeff had been offered an assistant coaching job with the Colts and said no because, he wanted to spend time with his kids. So, I mean, it's going to be up to Jeff Saturday if that situation does arise, if he does want to accept the job on a full-time basis. Regardless, I do worry that if Jeff Saturday does have success and does get the full-time head coaching job of the Indianapolis Colts, what the ripple effect could be around the NFL. Because there will be teams, obviously, this offseason looking for new head coaches. And I'm not saying that it'll happen this year, but I would be surprised if in the next couple years, if we get a team who goes through something similar that Indianapolis has this year, where they fire their coach mid-season, and instead of hiring from within, one of the coaches on the staff, they look outside and bring in a former player. Like, let's say, just as an example, if the Raiders were to fire Josh McDaniels next year, and instead of hiring one of the coaches that they already have on their staff, Mark Davis calls Charles Woodson and says, "Hey, I want to make you the interim head coach," because that isn't something that should become a norm. Again, this isn't to crap on Jeff Saturday whatsoever, but there is a possible ripple effect here if he is successful. And I know that sounds like I'm rooting against the success of Jeff Saturday, which I understand the language I'm presenting. It's hard to not make it sound like that. I'm not trying to say I'm rooting against the Colts. I'm not trying to say I'm rooting against Jeff Saturday. I am just trying to say that that is a ripple effect that we should not. But if Saturday has success and gets the full time job, I mean, if you're a team like Carolina, if they call it Musin Muhammad, they're like, hey, we want to make you the head coach. If David Tepper calls Musin Muhammad or Julius Peppers and it's like, hey, we've got guys on this staff who've been head coaches before. We've got guys that are probably deserving of the opportunity to try their hand at being a head coach. Oh, the guy that we have right now, Steve Wilkes, he's doing a pretty okay job. However, we want you, Julius Peppers, to be our new head coach. It's not a good look. And we saw the scrutiny that came with the Saturday hiring. I mean, imagine that on multiple other levels with multiple other teams, especially if we've got minority coaches that are in line to possibly get these jobs and are interviewed for these jobs, and they're passed over for a guy who hasn't coached. Especially in a lot of the situation, if it's a white player who hasn't coached. Like, that's going to draw up a lot of, like, if you're Byron Leftwich and you're in line to get one of these soon to be vacant head coaching jobs, like, let's say it's with Carolina, and they hire Luke Kuechly, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people about that. To hire a guy who, yes, is beloved by the fan base, is a great player, coach. Not to say that he can't be good at it or won't be good at it, but there's a qualifications gap there. Like, if you're asking me who deserves to be the coach in this, fake scenario that, we don't know that will happen, but in that situation, like, if you ask me who deserves to be the coach more, it's obviously Byron Leftwich. He's been the OC in Tampa Bay the past few seasons. He's done a very good job at doing so. Had a few head coaching interviews last year or coming into this season, in particular with Jacksonville, the team that he spent most of his career with as the quarterback. So if there's situations like that where we have teams who need a head coach, and instead of hiring somebody who's been an assistant or a coordinator of some sort, who's put in the time and is deserving of a head coaching job, like a guy like D'Amico Ryans in San Francisco. There's a lot of murmurs that he might get the Minnesota job coming into the season. They gave it to Kevin O'Connell, obviously, and D'Amico decided to stay in San Francisco for the year. And it's all but guaranteed he's going to get a head coaching job. Like, if he's in line to get the Carolina job and they were to hire a former player, it's bad, horrible for a guy who's very deserving, has done a really good job the past couple seasons as the 49ers defensive coordinator. If they were to go in a direction of, look, we got D'Amico Ryans or we've got Luke Kuechly. Yeah, the fans might get pretty hyped that Luke Kuechly's the head coach, but he's also doesn't meet the qualifications. He doesn't have the resume in terms of coaching that D'Amico Ryans does. So that is something that does worry me about, if Jeff Saturday does continue to have success, that teams are going to look at that and say, huh, maybe we shouldn't look at offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators from around the league. Maybe we should just look at guys who used to play here. And again, I'm not wishing any sort of bad luck on Jeff Saturday. I got nothing bad to say about Jeff Saturday. I wish him success. I really do. And again, I was one of the. I tweeted out saying, look, we're crapping on Jeff Saturday too much because if any of us were presented with the opportunity, we would accept the job. And if you say you wouldn't, you're lying. But I can say that, and I can be happy for Jeff Saturday, but also be worried about the possible ramifications if he does have success this season. Doesn't mean I'm rooting for him to fail, but I am rooting for teams to not look at that and make it the new model, because it is not fair to the guys who have put in the work years and years as coordinators, especially, to work their way up to positions to try to earn a head coaching job, only to get passed over for a guy that used to play for the organization. That is something that I would have a problem. And that's something that a lot of people had a problem with the Saturday signing, because the Colts have multiple guys on their staff who used to be head coaches or were in line to get a chance to be a head coach. The prime example that people used was, okay, if they wanted to hire a legend of the team, Reggie Wayne is on the staff. He's a wide receiver coach. And if they wanted a guy who's had head coaching experience, okay, well, John Fox is on the staff. Gus Bradley's on the staff. They have multiple assistants who have been there forever and would love a chance to try their hand at being a head coach and prove that they can do it. So that's a ripple effect I don't want to see, and that no one should want to see, because this is very much a lifestyle being an NFL coach. And the fact that somebody could work at it for so long and deserve a chance to be a head coach only to get passed up for a legend of an organization, that doesn't sit right. And it's something that we should all root against. Doesn't mean we got to root against Jeff Saturday and the Indianapolis Colts, but the possible ripple effect that could come after it, that's something that none of us should want to see. All right. So, on to the Buffalo Bills. Because the Bills Mafia seems to be freaking out a little bit. And you know what? Rightfully so. Now, the Buffalo Bills are still one of, if not still the best team in football. Because at their best, they are very deep on both sides of the ball. They're hard to stop offensively. Really, the only team that seems to be able to beat the Buffalo Bills is the Buffalo Bills. Against Miami, if Josh Allen doesn't underthrow Isaiah McKenzie in the end zone, if they don't miss a field goal. Also, it wasn't, 108 degrees. I'm sure that, a lot of those factors contribute into them losing to Miami. And also Miami played well. I'm not trying to take that away from Miami. Miami played well, especially their defense. Against the Jets, if you don't turn the ball over, like Josh Allen didn't play well that game. And then against Minnesota, you're up by 17, and you don't score a touchdown in the second half. By the way, they haven't scored a second half touchdown since the Chiefs game. The Buffalo Bills are still very much one of the best teams in the league. And this could turn out to be a blessing in disguise. Because every great team, and I wholeheartedly believe this, needs to have some sort of adversity in the year. Look at the past 2 Super Bowl champions. Look at the past 3, really. Look at any team. Any great team didn't have it scot-free, easy all season long. You look at any Super Bowl champion, they had to go through some stuff. Last year, the Rams didn't win in November. Then they won the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay lost 3 of 4 in 2020. They got beat 38-3 on Sunday Night Football. Remember that? At home to Drew Brees and the Saints. Everybody's like, all right, well, the Buccaneers have done their 7-5. What the hell are they going to do? And then they didn't lose the rest of the year. Year before that, Patrick Mahomes missed a couple games. Chiefs still won the Super Bowl. We can keep going. I mean, 2005, the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger missed 4 games. The Steelers were 7-5. They had to win out to get into the playoffs, and they did that, and they won the Super Bowl. Won 3 consecutive road playoff games to do it. Great teams, all great teams have to go through some stuff. Like, I wholeheartedly believe if you don't go through adversity in the regular season, like the 2019 Ravens are a great example of this. Baltimore went 14-2. Lamar, in his first 4 years as starter, was fantastic. They really didn't go through anything that year. Yeah, they lost 2 games, but I mean, you know, not having a perfect season doesn't mean that you went through adversity. They didn't go through anything that year. And then what happened? They got a first round bye, came out at home against Tennessee, and fell absolutely flat on their face. Because Tennessee, at the time, figured out a blueprint to beat Baltimore. Was like, okay, we're just going to send the house on the first 2 plays and then set up in third and longs and make Lamar throw the ball. Lamar's gotten much better as a passer since then, but at the time, I mean, Kansas City did it too. Pittsburgh did it. Hey, we can set up Baltimore in third and longs, we'll win the game. If we can get up by 10, we'll win. They aren't a team that's built to come back. They're a team that, they're built to get ahead and coast. So, Buffalo, Bills Mafia, take a deep breath because no great team has ever not gone through something. And yeah, look, it sucks to be up 17 in the second half and lose, especially in the way that they did. After a goal line stand, to have your center muff the snap at the goal line, yeah, it's a crap way to lose. And yeah, Josh Allen threw a horrendous interception in overtime. And they have some things that they need to figure out where they need to be okay with the layups offensively. They need to be okay with the short pass, 3 yards downfield that picks up 8 yards. They need to understand that not every play is going to be a home run ball. But without the adversity telling them that, wouldn't you rather learn that in week 10 than in the AFC Championship game again and lose to Mahomes again? Wouldn't you rather get slapped in the face in the regular season while still being a playoff team, still being 6-3, still being a half game within the division with an easy schedule, by the way? I mean, their next 2 games are against Cleveland and Detroit. And then here in a few weeks, they welcome Miami into Buffalo for the rematch, which looks like it could be for the division. Wouldn't you rather get slapped in the face now, kind of have to, take your medicine, eat it, and move on and try to get better rather than, go through this season with zero sort of issues, get to the playoffs with issues that are there but have never peeked their ugly head and are unresolved, come to light against Kansas City and go down again. Because everybody counted out the Rams last year after they lost 3 consecutive games. What'd they do? They said, okay, you know what? Let's fix this. Odell, we're going to get you. We're going to get Von Miller, and we're going to fix this offense. 2 years prior, I mean, Brady's first year at the Bucks. There was some growing pains there. COVID year 2. 38-3 loss to the Saints. Sitting at 7-5, everybody's like, okay, what are the Bucks? What can they do? And then they didn't lose again. Every great team goes through something. Buffalo's no different. And look, they're still going to be here in January. They're going to have a deep playoff run. We're likely going to see another iteration of Bills Chiefs in the playoffs. And if it's in Buffalo, then great. But if it's not an excuse anymore. Wherever this game is played, you got to win. You already won an Arrowhead. Yeah, they won an Arrowhead last regular season too, and they were 13 seconds away from doing it again. So yeah, there are things that Buffalo needs to address. One, their second half defense. The fact that they need to understand that not every play on offense is going to be a home run. But wouldn't you rather figure that out now, get hit in the face now in week 10, rather than in the AFC Championship game and realize, oh crap, we actually do have issues and we didn't do anything to solve them because they never came to light. Because we were a team without flaws, or so we thought. And yes, you can be angry, Bills fans. That's a crappy way to lose. You lost 2 straight, but guess what? You got Buffalo, or you got Cleveland and Detroit. The next 2 games are Detroit and Cleveland. I think it's Detroit this coming week, Cleveland the following week. Those are 2 get-right games. I fully expect Buffalo to win by 30 against the Lions. A pissed-off Bills team going up against a Lions team that's riding high after winning 2 straight games. 2 straight games that were handed to them on a silver platter, by the way. A Lions team that isn't very good, with a pissed-off Josh Allen, a pissed-off Von Miller, a pissed-off Stephon Diggs. I fully expect them to wake up for that game, play 4 quarters of the Buffalo Bills that we know that they are, and run through the line. And I expect a lot of the same the following week against Cleveland. I would not want to be Jacoby Brissett that game. I don't want to be Jared Goff this coming week. And then look at that. You're 8-3. Could be back on top of the division because, I mean, I touched on it already. They got an easy schedule the rest of the way. Now compare that to that of the Miami Dolphins, who do not have nearly as easy a schedule the rest of the week. So, Buffalo remaining schedule. They're at home against Cleveland next week. So I did get this flip. So they're at home against Cleveland this coming week, at Detroit the following week, at New England, home for the Jets. I think they win all 4 of those. I think they're 10-3, and then Miami comes to Buffalo. If you're sitting at 10-3, I mean that's a hell of a place to be. Then you look at the Miami Dolphins, the rest of their schedule. This week they got Houston. They should win that game at home. Then they go to San Francisco. I don't think they beat San Francisco in San Francisco. Then they go to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. That's not a gimme either. So, I mean, Miami could go 2-1, 1-2 over their next 3. They go 1-2. I mean, they're 8-5. And if you beat them at 8-5 and you're 10-3, guess what? Division's on ice. Even if they're 9-4, you beat them, you get two games ahead. Division is all but on ice. Especially because, I mean, after the Miami game, you want me to read off the rest of the Bills schedule? After the Miami game, at Chicago, at Cincy, home for New England. I don't think they lose more than one of those. They ain't losing to Chicago. If you want to say they'll lose in Cincinnati, that'll be their toughest remaining game, obviously. So that one's definitely possible loss. They're not losing to New England. Not losing to New England. At worst, the Bills are going to be 12-5. Miami Dolphins. I mean, after the Bills, this is the Dolphins' next 4 games. So we already touched Houston. I think they win that, get them to 8-3. And then at San Francisco, 8-4. At Chargers, possibly 8-5. At Bills, I think 8-6. We'll say 8-6, 9-5. And then Green Bay, I don't want to play the Packers. And then 2 New England, and then closing with the Jets. So, I mean, Buffalo definitely has an easier road the rest of the way than Miami. I think that the Bills still win the division. I think they're still the best team in that division. Still think they're the best team in football. They got some stuff to get right. I think they do get it right. And it's better to find out now that, hey, we need to fix this in week 10 than it is to find out in the playoffs when, hey, it's do or die. So, all right. Kickoff about to happen for Washington, Philadelphia on Monday Night Football. We'll be back Wednesday Newsletter also comes out Wednesday, so we'll touch a little bit on the newsletter as well, what I cover in that, and get you ready for Thursday Night Football as we head into Week 11. Thanksgiving is next week, folks. I'm going to have to get Verderam on, talk a little bit about Thanksgiving plates and foods and whatnot and Christmas movies. This next one, we did a space. Was it last night? 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago. Yeah. 2 nights ago, Verderam and I did a space, and we did a little bit of, after the football talk, talked about Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we'll do that on this show rather than on a Twitter space. So, yeah, we'll get Verderam on for Week 11. Obviously talk about, the slate and stuff going on around the league. But, yeah, we'll definitely talk some Thanksgiving stuff, too, because it's nice to have that as well. But regardless, appreciate y'all listening. Be back Wednesday. Enjoy Commanders and Eagles. I took Commanders plus 11.5. Had a good day of betting yesterday, aside from the same game parlay I had on Chargers 49ers last night. So we'll see how that goes. Appreciate y'all tuning in. See you Wednesday.